Hi everybody, what's going on? Well, as promised, I did say that I would bring an update on the GPX this week before the weekend. So we're going to try and keep this fluid and keep it moving and hopefully not too long. But there's quite a bit to talk about. We'll talk about all these boxes and things in front of me in a moment or so. But the last event we did was Spaunton Quarry. It was quite a testing event for the bike. The bike held up pretty well actually. You know, what should have been a normal cross-country event turned into be an extreme, cross-country event, and the bike did pretty good. The only thing we had at the end of it was a blown fork seal, but the bike was due a fork service or suspension service around that time anyway, which was 48.5 hours on the clock when we finished. So yeah, the bikes were brought back. Quite a funny thing actually happened. Stripped the bike down, got it cleaned, and whilst in the process of doing things, I mean, I'm religiously always checking the hour meter after every ride to see what hours I've put on the bike and making sure everything's as it should be. And once we got the bike washed off and cleaned off, a couple of days afterwards, I was in the garage here and just doing a few things, and something caught the corner of my eye, and I noticed that the hour meter was running, and I'm thinking, what's going on? The engine's not running, the ignition's not on, and I couldn't work out what was happening. So the hour meter had started ticking away on its own. At that point, it was on like 100 hours, so it's generated 50 hours or so just being stood in the garage. So it got to a point that I need to get a new hour meter. So I took that off and I actually stuck it on the door behind me in the garage, and it actually finished the other day around 350 hours it's racked up. So obviously a faulty hour meter, which does happen. So we've got a new hour meter on the bike, and we're now at, I think it's 2.7 hours on this new hour meter. So we're just over that 50 hour mark now in real terms. So the bike's had a big service. It's had gearbox oil, it's had air filter, it's had brake fluid changes, it's had a clutch fluid change as well, because we've got the hydraulic clutch conversion on. Just a right good going through really. Things greased, linkage greased, and we're now on with suspension servicing. Now we've already done the front forks. I took the forks up to Eurotech last week, and I stripped them down and got into them to see what they were like. And to be fair, it weren't too bad a job. I mean, I stripped the actual forks down myself, but I got Nick, my colleague, to build them back up while I did a little bit of video work. But what I will say was taking them apart was relatively easy. The cap at the top, the only issue that I had was the springs, the outer diameter of the fork spring. I've got some here. Well, yeah, the outer diameter was just a little bit tight in the recess on the cap. So when you are taking the cap off, once you've got the cap unscrewed from the actual fork tube, you then take the cap off from the inner section. You need, I think it was a 17mm spanner to undo it with the fork cap spanner. Because the spring was wedged quite tight into the cap, it was difficult to turn the spring. I couldn't actually turn the spring, so I was continually having to take the spanner out and just turn it, and then eventually we got to a point where we could release it. So that was the only issue. But I'll go on to what I've done with the springs. But before I do that, actually in the cap is what I would describe it as a floating adjuster nut. So you need to be careful when you're taking the cap off, you don't drop this screw, what's floating about in there. I'll show you a quick photograph of it now. It's not really a big deal, because when we were putting the forks back together, all Nick did was put some suspension grease in the hole in the top of the cap, and then put the screw in and located it onto the adjuster at the top, and then screwed the cap on as you would normally do. So it wasn't that much of a big deal, but it's just a little bit fiddly if you don't know what you're doing. But from a spring point of view, during the last race I did hit a couple of holes, and the forks did bottom out on occasion. I thought it might be wise to upgrade the springs while we're doing the service. if you remember the 2009 KTM bike that I sold recently, that bike was put back to standard. As a result of putting that bike back to standard and keeping the heavier springs for my weight, we've now got a set of springs that fitted the GPX. So we've now got heavier springs in the front forks. And the KTEX springs from this box. So it's not cost me anything. That's the beauty of keeping your old stuff. If you are buying a bike and you're upgrading suspension, you're putting aftermarket parts on, keep all your old stuff because it'll come in at some point. And on this occasion it has done. So we've got heavier springs in the front now, so there's going to be no chance of the forks bottoming out. And I was out riding yesterday and it was perfect. It did feel a bit more solid now. I mean, I had no issues really with it before. And what I will say as well, with these forks being compression and rebound on both sides, the adjustability is really good. I mean, you can feel when you close off the compression fully or you close off the rebound fully, you can really feel the difference. So for what they are, you know, these forks on a budget bike, I mean, the tubes, the outer diameter of the tubes, the appearance of the tube is just like a WP fork tube, but internally is different. But they work phenomenal for the money, absolutely work phenomenal. So that's all I need to do. I've just put heavier springs in the front. When we get round to doing the rear shock, which will be in a couple of weeks, we'll look at that and we'll probably change the spring in the rear shock. But that's the sort of thing we do with suspension, don't we? In an ideal world, you get your suspension set up to your weight, etc. A lot of guys just ride stock because they're happy with that. I mean, I was fairly happy with it, but if we've got the springs what will fit, why not fit them? So that's the front forks. Quite a straightforward procedure. Stock fork seals, WP 48mm fork seals, and likewise with the bushes as well, standard bushes, all the stuff what we had in stock at Eurotech fitted, no problem. The rear shock I'll get round to in a couple of weeks or so, but just looking at the other bits and pieces what I've got down here, I've got another set of springs, and I've also got a rear shock spring as well. Now those were off my 250F, which I had a couple of years ago, the EXE 250F KTM, and I've got two options with these. I can either put them on my 450 rally bike because of my weight, or I can wait and I can put them on the GPX, what's coming out, the 300 GPX, because it's PDS, and we'll have to wait and see what the fork internals are like, but there might be a possibility that these springs will fit on the 300. So I'm going to hang on to these for the moment and just keep them boxed up before I decide what I'm going to do, whether they go on the 450 or whether they go on the new 300 GPX. We'll have to see. And I've also got the standard WP valving. I've kept them, that's from my 300 TPI. So that's got ORVS system on the front fork, so at some point if I do sell that bike, I can put the bike back to standard and keep the ORVS stuff, because it's all expensive money. You know what it's like, you get your bike upgraded, and I know people have done this, have upgraded the bike with suspension and all sorts of stuff. A year, 18 months down the line, they'll sell it, and they'll sell it with all the kit on, and they're having to buy it all again, and it's usually, you know, a lot dearer the second time round. So if you can keep your old gear, keep it. What else is going on? Well, we've since got the bike insured. We're road legal now. I mean, it took a little bit of a while to get the V5 or the title for the bike from the Driving Vehicle Licence Agency. Mainly because the bike was the first bike, one of the first batch in the country, and the application for the title had to be done manually on paper and sent through. So it took a little bit of a while to come back, but we've now got that. So we're fully road registered properly, and we're now insured as well. I've got insurance through Carroll Nash. It took a little bit of doing because it's a new bike to the UK from a manufacturer point of view, so insurance underwriters didn't have anything on file to sort of match it again, so I had to send them some photographs and sent them a link to the GPX Moto UK website, and also send them a copy of my V5 as well, just so they can rate the bike properly, and they've rated it similar to a Freeride 250F. So we've got insurance now, no problem, fully comp. I have a multi-bike policy, and you know, from a cost point of view, I've got 3 bikes fully comp, and I'm just over £300, but I am 57 and I've got full no claims as well, so you know, insurance varies for various reasons for different people. But that's where I am. I've got 3 bikes, just over £300, fully comp with Carol Nash. And the GPX is one of them. So I can get out trail riding, and I went out trail riding yesterday. What else have we done? I think that's about it really at the moment. I am a bit rushed tonight, but otherwise the bike's going great. You know, Sports Quarry was a massive test for it, and you know, even some of the guys that I know said that as well, and it did well. I'm pretty pleased. Let's not forget, you know, where this bike's aimed at. It's aimed at the trail riders. It's not perfect by any means. It's like any bikes, you know. When bike, you know, I don't care what bike it is. If your bike's running, it's great. If your bike's not running, it's broken down. It's a pile of crap. Yeah. Whether it's a Sherco, Beta, Gas, Suzuki, whatever, yeah, GPX, whatever. If they're broken, they're no good to anybody. But so far, it's not broken. It's doing what I ask of it. You know, people have asked me on a couple of occasions, what do I think of the bike, the GPX bikes? And yeah, I've made a few upgrades, but they're all personal upgrades. But the stock bike is a good bike. I can't say any more really. You've just got to go by what you see and what you hear. I'm trying to be honest with it. I enjoy riding it. It's really filled a hole for me, you know, in terms of the KTM, what I let go. I feel happier riding this because I've got electric start. It's more modern. You know, I'd rather be riding this on the trails than my TPI. The TPI is for those special occasions, and the 300 GPX, which I've ordered when it comes, hopefully in May, will also be a bike for those sort of special occasions. You know, some hard enduro races, trips to Werndu, Calm Quarry, that sort of stuff. You know, sort of, you know, events I don't do that often. This fills the gap. I can ride it day in, day out. When the weather gets a bit warmer, it will be getting a lot more hammer wool this in between those sort of special events, those sort of especially fortnightly or sort of 3 week to a month, you know, events that I'll be going to. But yeah, she's good so far. One thing I'll talk about the tyres actually. The back tyre, I've still got the Maxxis on. I'm going to run it till it's dead, till it's absolutely dead. The front tyre, I put that on especially for the last race. It's a tyre that you've probably never heard of. It's a Delhi Terracross tyre, and let me tell you now, came across these tyres by accident just by looking on eBay. I have a saved search for tyre sizes, just to see what's popping up and see any bargains out there. And these, I got 2 of these. It's a nice, it's like it's an in between a super soft and a medium soft. It's quite a pliable tyre. Oh, bike's falling over. Yeah, it's quite a pliable tyre, and so it's an 80/100/21 in size, and it's really nice. It grips well, and there were 34 quid. I got 2. I wish there were 5 actually available. I wish I'd bought them all. So if you do see one of these tyres, a Delhi Terracross, and I'll put the code up, the tyre code up. If you can find any, they are really good tyres, really good, and they'll be good for hard enduro with them being that sort of soft, pliable compound. So that's where we're at the moment. We've got Werndu this weekend. Yeah, cooking on gas really at the moment. You know, as far as the GPX concerned, happy days now. We're fully road registered, we're fully insured. We've got hopefully a green laning trip next week, so that'll be like a 100-mile green lane trip. And then at the end of the month I'm going to Wales for the weekend with some guys from down south, so hopefully we're taking the GPX on that as well. So a bit of a trip around Wales on the GPX will be quite good to video. So that's it for the moment. A quick update on what's going on. You know, I know people are really interested in the GPX. All I can say, you know, when people ask me, is it any good? Just go by what you see. And I'm riding it. It's not breaking down. It's not falling apart. I'm not to buy any parts for it. You know, it's at the moment. You know, when I start needing parts, then we'll cross that bridge. But I don't think there'll be any issues with the sort of stuff that I might need. But I have started a small parts box for things that I might need in the future, and I'm talking like 100 hours plus, you know, in that sort of territory, just to sort of get things in place early doors. So I've got things on hand should I need them, and I would say with any bike, if you're putting a lot of hours on a bike, you need to start building up a selection of spares for things that you might need, or things that are going to wear out when you get to the 80, 100 hours plus sort of region. So you've got them. So when things start going wrong, you can put them right straight away. So yeah, we'll talk about that in the next video, and look out for some footage from Way and Do at the weekend. So stay tuned. Hard Enduro and Adventure Media at Eurotech and on Robbo's GPX Dirt Bike page. See you soon, guys.